Hello to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Hopefully you're enjoying the 4th of July holiday weekend, at least what's left of it. I want to take this time to, of course, update you on what's happening in the tropics, holiday weekend or not. Of course, we are always here keeping a close eye on any potential crazy weather for you. And right now we're focusing on any tropical troubles. We did have something fairly significant happen across the Carolinas this morning. Our first landfalling tropical system in the U.S. happened this morning. I want to take you back and talk about all of the tropical systems we've had so far for the 2025 Atlantic Basin hurricane season. Of course, that includes the Atlantic Ocean, the Caribbean Sea, and the Gulf. Now, our first named storm of the season was back in June, Tropical Storm Andrea. It was weak, it was short-lived, and it was far away from the U.S. Popped up around the central Atlantic. It was already northeast of Bermuda, and it was moving away from the U.S. So basically a fish storm. Nothing happened with that one. Tropical Storm Barry did not impact the U.S., but it did bring some heavy rain and some pretty significant flooding to parts of southeastern Mexico late in June. So we did have a short-lived, unorganized tropical storm with Barry, but it did still do some damage with that flooding. This morning, Tropical Storm Chantal made landfall around Litchfield Beach in South Carolina early this morning. So we've had 3 named storms now. Of course, hurricane season began on June 1st and it runs all the way through November 30th. So we still got a ways to go. But the good news is that Chantal was not allowed to get any stronger. It never reached hurricane status, but it did make landfall as a weaker tropical storm this morning along the Carolina coast. You can see that big swirl on our tropical satellite indicating what's left of Chantal. The convection, the bursts of showers and storms kind of starting to fall apart and become less organized now, since of course these tropical systems need that warm water to fuel them, and then once they make landfall they kind of start to run out of steam. Sometimes it happens a little slower, sometimes it happens pretty quick. I think with this system it's going to be pretty quick, already down to a tropical depression. However, we do still have problems. It is a holiday weekend and we've got issues up and down the Carolina coast with high surf potential here, a life-threatening rip current risk. We've got windy conditions at these beaches, and of course a threat for those heavy downpours. We've had a few cases of flash flooding, even a report of a tornado at one of the smaller airports in Raleigh. So a lot going on here. Of course, when you have landfalling tropical systems, there's always that low chance that you could get 1 or 2 brief tornadoes as that larger circulation kind of starts to break down. All right, here's the latest with tropical depression Chantal. Of course, no longer a tropical storm. It is a weaker tropical depression, 30-mile-per-hour winds there, and it is moving to the north-northeast at 10 miles per hour. Pressure now up to 1,007 millibars. So as that pressure continues to go up, the wind will be coming down. It is getting weaker. You can see that at this point it is moving north-northeast. It's going to make kind of more of a northeasterly curve over the next day or so, likely rolling right over Richmond, Virginia, maybe getting closer to the Washington, D.C. area as we go into Monday. So by then it's just going to be the remnants of Chantal. It's going to be a post-tropical system as it loses those tropical characteristics. So likely 25-mile-per-hour winds by Monday morning, and then getting even weaker as we go through the rest of Monday. But still, if you're traveling to DC, to Philly, New York City over the next few days, you could still end up getting a higher chance for some burst of that heavy rain due to that remnant moisture from what will be left of Chantal. You can see with our Fox weather tropical model, the remnants of this system really making their way through parts of the Carolinas, central parts of North Carolina, central portions of Virginia, over towards Roanoke, and then moving over towards the Harrisonburg area, and eventually getting close to DC and Philly with a few bursts of heavier rain. So basically between now and Tuesday, we're thinking anywhere from 2 to 4 inches of rain potentially for parts of North Carolina, from High Point to Charlotte to Raleigh to Fayetteville, and even up towards Salisbury, DC. There could be some isolated 1 to 2 inch totals that could spread all the way up to Philly and NYC. So the effects from Chantal will continue for at least the next few days for parts of the mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, and maybe even up into the Northeast. But thank goodness it wasn't any worse, right? At least it didn't reach hurricane status. Let's look at what we've had so far for this season. Of course, we're looking at the Colorado State University forecast for this hurricane season. They have predicted 17 named storms, out of those 9 becoming hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. We've made it through June and a little bit of July, and so far we've had 3 named storms. None of those so far have become hurricanes or major hurricanes. So we've got a long way to go to reach these numbers. Hopefully we won't, but we are still expecting things to get a lot busier, especially after this month as we get into August, and especially September, which is typically the peak of hurricane season. Average season would bring us about 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, out of those about 3 major hurricanes. So we've got 1, 2, 3. We've gotten through the A storm, the B storm, the C storm. Next on the list would be Dexter, and hopefully Dexter will not bother us anytime soon, but that would be the next name we use if we do get another tropical storm developing. Then we go to Aaron, Fernan, Gabrielle. That would take us through that first column of names. Then we've got 2 more columns that we could potentially be using as we go through the hurricane season, all the way down to Wendy. So hopefully we won't have to use a lot of these, but of course they are there, and there's always that potential, especially as we get closer to August and September. Right now though, we got a lot of Saharan dust rolling across the Atlantic, and that is kind of hindering a lot of tropical development at this point. We're actually going to get a big burst of that Saharan dust, some thick Saharan dust rolling right into H-Town, into the Houston area by Thursday and Friday. So that is going to contribute to the very hazy conditions. It's going to bring in some drier air in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So we are anticipating that haze to definitely increase towards the end of the work week. All right, as far as where we could possibly see some development for the rest of this month, there is an elevated risk. It's a low chance, but it's possible in the northwestern Gulf. Of course, that could potentially impact southeast Texas and the Houston area. Also, western parts of the Atlantic have a slightly higher shot for tropical development, and that's exactly where we had Chantal develop over the last several days. So we're monitoring those areas closely, but notice the much higher risk as we go into August for areas right off of the southeastern U.S., right off of the Carolina coast, a more likely 3 out of 4 risk showing up here, and even into the Gulf, especially north central portions of the Gulf, there's that elevated likely risk showing up for a potential hurricane. So even though things are quiet now, don't let your guard down, because we're really just getting into the part of the hurricane season where things kind of really start to pop and get going out there. For September, this is typically the most active month of the hurricane season, September 10th being the most active period, the actual peak, historically at least, of hurricane season. And notice it is a very high chance that we do have tropical systems forming for the western Atlantic and an elevated higher risk for the Gulf as well, and even into parts of the northern and north central Caribbean. So we've got a lot going on. Likely over the next few months, there will likely be more developments out in the tropics for the Atlantic basin. There is that peak in September for our tropical systems, named storms, and hurricanes, and we will be monitoring things closely as we go through the rest of this hurricane season. So make sure to keep it here. We give you these updates daily, and of course, if something starts to brew and is threatening Southeast Texas, threatening the Houston area, we will let you know quickly. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist Ramisha Shade. Have a safe one. Enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend.